Good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, come on in, come on in. You guys already know, you already know the deal. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share this segment. It is Silhouette of a Queen in Light of the Queen, a Black History Month series, and I am your host and founder, Tiffany Devon. I am a certified life coach and wardrobe stylist, and I'm excited about tonight. We are in week two. Come on now, come on now. Week two. Whew, it's been a week. It has already been a week, but we are getting ready to close out this week. And so we just have a lot to be thankful for. I understand it's a lot going on in the world today, and none of us are exempt from feeling all the things that are going on in the world. But what we must always take light of is just the fact that we're still here. We're still here. So we got to always be mindful of that. And, that's what it's about. I think in this season, really, it's about just being thankful and having gratitude for just the small things, just the small things, whether you have food on your table, just thanking God for having food on your table, thanking God for a job. And if you don't have a job, there's some form of resource that He's using to make sure that you don't go without. And in this challenging season and in this challenging time, I urge you, wherever you are, do not get out of relationship with people. What I mean by that is making sure that you're always checking in. I know it's not always easy. There's this thing that's floating around on social media that says check on your strong friends. And sometimes when you're the strong friend, people don't always take to check on you, because sometimes when you're the strong person and you're the pillar in your community, you're the one that everyone comes to for ideas, they come to for advice. People don't always think to check on you. But I will have to say this, for those of you that are the pillars in your community, you also have to be transparent and be willing to be vulnerable in front of others so that they do know to check on you. That's just my little tip for y'all tonight. So anyhow, I am excited about part two of In Light of the Queen, a Black History Month series. For those of you that are new to the Silhouette of a Queen platform, I created this platform for a powerful and resilient woman who is yet to be seen, felt, or heard. And when I thought about this, I thought of a silhouette being an image of a woman that is still becoming, that is still yet to be seen. And I believe that no matter where we are in this season of what we call life, we are still adding layers and dimensions to who we are becoming. We're always steadily becoming and steadily evolving into the woman that we are. I haven't always been this woman that you are seeing today. It took a lot of tears. I've cried so many tears to become her. And I'm still becoming, I'm still reaching a new height. And I have just come to know that at 42 years old, that there's still another level for me to reach to. And just when you think you've reached it, here comes God. He's like, that's another level. And you're like, gosh, just when I was thinking I was getting comfortable with this one. And so I just want to share that with you guys, to always be continuing to evolve. So I want to also talk about, I don't have my crown tonight. Typically, I've been wearing my crown, and I want to explain to you what that means. When I was wearing my crown, the crown will make her debut again. But, I like to bring in my little fashion sense because I am a wardrobe stylist, and I like to be able to bring that also to this platform. But spiritually, I want to help you understand what a crown is and what it represents. A crown is a greater level of maturity and responsibility. It is God entrusting you with the weight of becoming a more mature woman, right? We all have to evolve into woman, and there's many different ways of what that looks like when we talk about evolving into becoming a more mature woman. That means becoming stable in your emotions. As women, sometimes we can be a bit emotional, right? And these things that run inside of us when we feel really strongly about something and someone ticks us off, or we got to let them know, well, I kind of sat for it for a minute before I said anything. 10 minutes is not enough. I can still feel the rage behind your words. So, as women, we have to do the due diligence of getting our emotions in check, right? That's where the responsibility and maturity comes into. And that takes time, but you have to be willing to first acknowledge that this is an area in your life where you may have to mature in and grow in. And then take that step in just applying whatever it is that you know that you need to mature in. Also, a crown represents your own unique personality. I believe that God has gifted all of us with a unique sense of personality, of who we are, whether it comes through our giftings and our talent. There is no two ladies that are alike. That's what makes us unique. And also redefining our lives, which is what I mentioned earlier. So, again, when we think about the crown is a responsibility and a weight. And I believe that God has gifted every woman, as I've said this on other Silhouette of a Queen segments, is that every woman has a measure of influence. We do. God has gifted us with that. And it is what we do with that measure of influence. Are we going to use it for our own personal gain? Are we going to use it to help others? That is what the influence is about. It's not about looking at looking at yourself and saying, I'm an attractive woman, I'm going to use this to get what I want. No, that's not what that's about. That's what culture teaches us. But when you are representing God and you are representing his kingdom, it we roll differently. We do. We don't operate the same. And so a lot of times the things when we start really committing ourselves to walking with God in another level and a higher dimension, you start to see all of these things that I've been taught and all of these things that I believed about how a woman is to conduct herself and how she is to move. You start to see that it is totally opposite. And that is where the war comes in, because now you have to undo this thinking and this behavior that no longer is going to coincide with how God would have you to operate, because God has you operate in a totally different realm, in a totally different space, and it's so different. I remember when God started challenging me in the area of even like how I view dating and what culture teaches us about dating. And if you want to get a man's attention, you got to do this and you got to play up this. And God said, nope, you don't have to do all of that. There, like I said, there's a measure of magnetism and influence that God has given us, but that's for another Silhouette of a Queen segment. Okay. So, but anyway, I'm going to steer us back into In Light of the Queen series. And I wanted to touch on In Light of the Queen because I wanted to pay homage to Black women in our culture that have moved us forward in our society. And it was because of their determination and their courage and their tenacity is the reason why we're here today and why we're enjoying some of the freedoms. We cannot forget those women that came before us that were standing in very tumultuous times in their day and in their generation. And they had the boldness to say there's something more, even though they had no blueprint of what that looked like. And so, as women in our culture, in our day, and in our generation, God is tapping us on our shoulder because there is something that we're supposed to do in this day, in this season, so that the next generation that comes after us, they will be able to see the works that we did. Okay, but that it will be through the function and the unction of the God Spirit and the power of the Holy Ghost working through us. So that is what this is about. This is about helping you to see how we can continue to shed those layers and to become full women, walking and owning our own individuality, our own queendomness, so that someone else can stand in our light as well. So tonight I'm going to go ahead and get started, because last week I talked about Maya Angelou and Harriet Tubman. So tonight I am going to be talking about Shirley Chisholm and Hazel Scott. So give me one moment to get this set up here, and one moment. Okay. Thank you so much for your patience. All right, so again, welcome to Black History Month in Light of the Queen series. And we're going to first be paying homage to Shirley Chisholm. So here are some quick facts of Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm was born on November 30th, 1924 in New York, New York. And she died January 1st, 2005. She was 81 years old. She was an American politician, educator, and author. She was the first Black woman elected to the United States Congress, and she was also the first Black woman candidate nominated for President of the United States. Did you guys know that? She is quoted for saying, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas." So Shirley Chisholm was born in Brooklyn, New York, and was the oldest of four daughters to immigrant parents, Charles St. Hill, a factory worker from Guyana, and Ruby Seals St. Hill. Her mother's name was Ruby Seals St. Hill, a seamstress from Barbados. She graduated from Brooklyn College cum laude in 1946, where she won prizes on the debate team. Although professors encouraged her to consider a political career, she replied that she faced a double handicap as being both Black and a woman. She earned a master's degree from Columbia University in early childhood education in 1951. By 1960, she was a consultant to the New York City Division of Daycare. Aware of racial and gender inequality, she joined local chapters of the League of Women's Voters, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the Urban League, as well as the Democratic Party Club in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, New York. In 1964, Chisholm ran for and became the second African American in the New York State Legislature. After court order redistricting created a new, heavily Democratic district in her neighborhood, in 1968, Chisholm sought and won a seat in Congress. There, she introduced more than 50 pieces of legislation and championed racial and gender equality, the plight of the poor, and ending the Vietnam War. She was co-founder of the National Women's Political Caucus in 1971, and in 1977 became the first Black woman and second woman ever to serve on the powerful House Rules Committee. Discrimination followed Chisholm's quest for the 1972 Democratic Party presidential nomination. She was blocked from participating in televised primary debates, and after taking legal action, was permitted to make just one speech. Still, students, women, and minorities followed the Chisholm trail. She entered 12 primaries and garnered 152 of the delegates' votes, 10% of the total, despite an underfinanced campaign and contentiousness from the predominantly male Congressional Black Caucus. She struggled to be regarded as a serious candidate instead of as a symbolic political figure. She was ignored by much of the Democratic political establishment and received little support from her Black male colleagues. She later said, when I ran for the Congress, when I ran for president, I met more discrimination as a woman than for being Black. Men are men. In particular, she expressed frustration about the Black matriarch thing, saying, they think I am trying to take power from them. The Black man must step forward, but that doesn't mean the Black woman must step back. Her husband, however, was fully supportive of her candidacy and said, I have no hangups. He says, I have no hangups about a woman running for president. Security was also a concern. As the campaign, 3 confirmed threats were made against her life. Conrad Chisholm served as her bodyguard until U.S. Secret Service protection was given to her in May 1972. Chisholm said, I want to be remembered as a woman who dared to be a catalyst of change. Chisholm's legacy came into renewed prominence during the 2008 Democratic presidential primaries when Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton staged their historic first battles, where the victor would either be the first majority party African American nominee or the first woman nominee, with at least one observer crediting Chisholm's 1972 campaign as having paved the way for the both of them. Chisholm has been a major influence on other women of color in politics, among them California Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who stated in a 2017 interview that Chisholm had a profound impact on her career. Vice President Kamala Harris recognized Chisholm's presidential campaign by using a similar color scheme and typography in her own 2020 presidential campaign's promotional materials and logo. That red and yellow design could be seen in a video announcing Harris's run for president. Harris launched her presidential campaign 47 years to the day after Chisholm's presidential campaign. And this information was taken from the National Women's History Museum. Whew. So Miss Shirley Chisholm, as we can see, was that woman that was a catalyst for change. I don't think we often see and hear that she was the first Black woman president nominee, right? So when we think and we listen to her life and we think about her life, what comes to mind to me, this is a quote that I often hear used a lot during International Women's Day. And it's a quote that says, here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. I think a lot of times as women, especially when we are very ambitious and assertive, sometimes women who are ambitious and assertive can be seen as a threat, because a lot of times we are dealing with the status quo of what a woman embodies and what a woman looks like. Woman belongs in the house. She belongs just preparing meals. She's a mother. She's just taking care of kids. There was a time where women were just that only. And so when you had women, especially in her era, that decided that they wanted to do something more. They wanted to serve as a catalyst for change. They wanted to work outside of the home. They wanted to have equal pay as men. They wanted to be able to vote and whatnot. Of course, when you are going against the status quo, you are going to rock the boat. And what I really, really admired most, and what this says to me, is that her husband was a confident man. Because in order for him to say he supported her and he had no problems with her being a presidential nominee, says to me that he was very secure in who he was. And I think as women, when we are called to lead and we are called to be in the forefront in any shape, form, or capacity, it is important that we choose life partners that are going to be able to support what it is that we have the capacity to do, because everybody can't do that. And I thought that was really, 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 really a big eye opener. And so because of her legacy, she paved the way for a lot of women of color to really step into the political arena and be able to provoke change in our society of what we see today. And when we think about legacy, we think about what we leave in people, not necessarily what we leave to people. And all of us are walking before people, whether that's, by way of our coworkers, our friends, our family. What are we leaving in people? What are people getting when they get us, when they see us? What wisdom and knowledge and nugget are you leaving with people that, had they not met you, their life would still be the same, but because they met you, their life has shifted. So that is what we want to think of when we think of In Light of the Queen. And so we tip our hats to Miss Shirley Chisholm, because she surely has made the difference. Our next queen is Miss Hazel Scott. So here's a quick fact of Miss Hazel Scott. She was born on June 11th, 1920, in Trinidad and Tobago. She died on October 2nd, 1981. She was 61 years old. She was a jazz and classical pianist, singer, and actor. And she used her influence to improve the representation of Black Americans in film. And I love this quote that she says that, "I've always known I was gifted, which is not the easiest thing in the world for a person to know, because you're not responsible for your gift, only for what you do with it." So Hazel Scott was, at the age of 4, she relocated to Harlem, New York from Trinidad and Tobago with her family. During that time, she could play anything she heard on the radio. With her mother's guidance and training, she mastered advanced piano techniques and was labeled a child musical prodigy. By the age of 8, she was accepted to Juilliard School of Music. By the time she turned 16, she was regularly performing at radio programs. Throughout the 1930s and 1940s, Hazel performed jazz, blues, ballads, Broadway, boogie woogie songs, and classical music in various nightclubs. Her performances created national prestige because she was the leading attraction. By 1945, Hazel was earning $75,000 a year, which is equivalent to 1 million in our time. Hazel was also one of the first Afro-Caribbean women to get respectable roles in major Hollywood films, and she refused to take roles as a singing maid. She insisted on having final cut privileges when it came to her appearance. She also required that she wear her own wardrobe if she saw that the studio choices were unacceptable. Hazel also refused to perform in segregated venues. She was once escorted from the city of Austin, Texas, by Texas Rangers because she refused to perform when she saw that white and Black patrons were seated in separate areas. "Why would anyone come to hear me, a Negro?" she told the Time magazine, and refused to sit by someone just like me. To evade political fallout in the United States, Hazel moved to Paris in 1957. She did not return to the United States until 1967. By this time, the civil rights movement had led to federal legislation ending racial segregation. In 1973, she starred in the daytime soap opera One Life to Live. Hazel was also married to U.S. Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, and they had one son, Adam Clayton Powell III, but they divorced in 1960. Hazel left such a legacy in the entertainment industry that singer Alicia Keys stated that she was her inspiration for wanting to learn how to play two pianos at the same time. Now, if you are not familiar with Hazel Scott, I highly recommend that you Google her name and listen to her play the piano. She was phenomenally talented. She was a beast on the piano, and she could go back between two pianos, as you see here um, in the picture. So when we listen to Hazel's life, right? I think of, we talked about last week what an activist is. And an activist is a person who provokes change, whether that's in political or social societies, right? And they use their platform, whether that's through arts and entertainment, whether that's through politics, through sports. You're basically saying that I am looking at my gift, I'm looking at what God has entrusted to me, and I am going to use that to provoke change. I am not using this gift just to make money and to just have riches and clothes, but I'm going to use this to make a difference in the world. So I often think about the quote that Malcolm X says, "A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything." And I liked how when we listened to her story that she mentioned she refused to perform at venues that were segregated. Now, if she was just about money, she would have just took that money and went on about her way. But she said no. How can someone come and support me, as she said, a Negro woman, which was what Black women and Black people were called during that day, was Negroes. We now would call them Black or African American. But how can someone come and listen to me, and I'm a Black woman, and yet not want to sit next to the people that look like me? And I thought that was very noble for her to do that. It showed that she was a true activist because she was willing to use her platform to shine a light on the social injustice in her day. And she changed the narrative of how Black women were being portrayed on screen. She refused to take acting roles that showed her as a maid. I think a lot of women during that time faced a lot of barriers because they were, like I mentioned before with Shirley Chisholm, they were willing to go up against the status quo. And when you go up against the status quo, as I mentioned before, you are going to you're going to provoke change, and it's going to be disruptive. People don't like disruption. Which is where we find ourselves in 2021. We are in one of the greatest disruptions that our generation has ever seen. And it's uncomfortable because everything as we know has changed. And I find myself, as I was reading these stories and researching and really comparing the time in which they lived and the time that we're living in, I kind of see it's really not that different. And what I mean by that is that I believe that we are all being challenged to change. We are all being challenged to look at the things that we have accepted and believed to be true for years. I'm talking about things that were belief systems that were established before we were even born. And we were born into a system, and people told us this is what it is, this is what we do, this is how we think, this is how we march. And now you're like, we're in the middle of this pandemic and we're confined more to our homes ever before. So now we're thinking, and all of these things are coming to us, and you're like, what's true, what's not true. And it's this tug of war fight, right? Of saying, okay, now we're back at this foundation. What will I, what will remain? What is true? And the only way that you can do that is having a relationship with God, because you cannot consult culture, because culture is being shaken too. They don't know what to do either. They don't know what to do. Um, And I believe because we are living in such this time in our history where things are shifting and changing, God is looking for the change agents. And you know who you are. You know who you are. You know who you are. I don't even have to say your name. You know you're a change agent. You know you're a change agent. You've always thought differently. You've always marched to the beat of your own drum. People didn't always understand you. This is how you know you're a change agent. When you don't think like everybody else thinks. When you open your mouth to speak and people say, "Where did you get that from? I never would have thought about it like that." You're a change agent. And so God uses you in a way that provokes change. It expands people's mindsets that had they not met you, they wouldn't have been able to look at it a different way. You have to start seeing yourself in this season where we are right now as a light carrier, meaning that you bring light into a dark situation. What is darkness? Darkness is absence of light. Darkness is absence of revelation. So when you step into the room with just it could be something simple. It doesn't have to be super deep. It does not have to be super deep. It could just be a sentence that changes somebody's life, that causes them to pivot. A pivot is just simply just you standing right here, and then now when you pivot, you just turn. And now you can go either this way, you can go this way, or you can go that way. So I'm saying this to myself, we have to begin to use this time, although it's challenging. I know it's challenging, but we have to begin to use this time of being quiet, being in isolation, not being able to do what we're used to doing. We're used to shopping, we're used to eating, we're used to being over. I'm just like, how did I miss this? There are some revelations that I'm getting in this season that I'm like, how come I didn't see this once before? Was I that busy? Was I really that busy? It's amazing what you'll see. The writing that's always been on the wall, but you couldn't see because our life was busy. Our life was busy. So let's use this. And I believe these two examples of Shirley Chisholm and Hazel Scott are great examples of women who use their life to provoke change. So tonight I want to leave that with you ladies tonight as you think about what you can pull from their lives and how you can make an impact just on the level of where you are. Your life is not insignificant. Your life is significant. And if you're watching this video, I don't care how you came across this video, if it's on your timeline, if it's on YouTube, if you find it 6 months from now, 8 months from now, a year from now, it will be because you are in the right place at the right time to hear this. There's this quote that I often say all the time. I love quotes. You will always hear me say quotes on Silhouette of a Queen because but it says when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. God knows when you're ready, and things will come across your path at the right time, and you're just like, I needed that. It's a light bulb. And it will be the light that you need, the revelation that you need to move forward, to pivot, to turn. That's where we are in this season. So before I go tonight, I want to support a Black queen who wrote this book, and it's called First Lady or Not. Her name is Gabrielle Beasley. And Gabrielle is a screenwriter and playwright. She lives here in the Dallas, Texas area. And this book was first written as a stage play, and she turned it into a book. So I want to just read to you guys just a brief synopsis of this book. It says here, there wasn't a sweet 16 for Crystal like most girls her age. It was bittersweet as she waddled around alone, pregnant, and confused. Fast forward 20 years, and Crystal is still trying to right a wrong that she shouldn't have had to fix. Determined to amend her past misfortunes, Crystal runs to the church. But instead of making God her savior, she seeks her salvation from Marcus Powers, co-pastor of Free Will Baptist Church. Marcus is the love of her life and the very vehicle that will drive her to becoming a first lady, a title she has wanted to own for most of her life. What Crystal fails to understand is that it will take more than being married to Marcus to make her a first lady. If Crystal doesn't learn to unblur the lines of her faith and flesh, she'll lose way more than just her self-worth. So I want you guys to really support this book, First Lady or Not. And you could go on to Amazon and type in her name, Gabrielle Beasley. And the book is $3.99 on Kindle, and it's $7.99 as a paperback. So make sure you get this book right here. We want to support our Black Queen in lieu of Black History Month in light of the Queen. Okay. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in to In Light of the Queen, a series, a Black History Month series. I will be returning again next week. And same time, same place, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you aren't, you can watch me, connect with me. I'm on all major social media platforms. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It has been an honor talking to you guys tonight. Again, my name is Tiffany Devon, and I am a certified life coach, wardrobe stylist, and I style leaders and influencers in fearless fashions. Thank you so much, you guys, for rocking with me tonight. I will be back. I hope you meet me back here at the same time, same place. All right, you guys have a good evening, and I'll talk to you soon.